Hey, Donnie Smith here, and this is the DIY Auto Body and Paint Q&A. These are your questions answered. These are questions that I have got on my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be responding to some of those videos that you had questions on, some of those comments with a response video. First of all, I'd like to mention that this Q&A is brought to you by collisionblast.com. Collisionblast.com brings you collision repair training, news, tips, videos, everything you can think of is there. All you have to do is go to collisionblast.com and sign up. When you go there, there'll be a form. Just give us your first name, email address, and we'll send you news and information straight to your inbox. It's absolutely free. Okay, back to the questions. This question is about primers. And another thing, if you look in the description, the video that we're responding to is going to be down there in this video so that you know what we're talking about. But it's about primers. And the question is, we got so many primers that we talk about, I'm confused of what primer to use. I believe he said he's doing a single stage and he sanded through some metal in a few spots, and there's so many primers, I don't even know what to use. Well, hopefully we're going to clear this up for you. And by the way, this is nothing new. There's just a lot of confusion about primers. And I know a lot of the viewers that watch this are DIY, you do it yourself, and you're not familiar with all the terms that we use. And even students that work around this every day, it gets confusing to them because there are a lot of different products. A lot of different brands make it a lot of different lines. But I want to tell you what I'm most familiar with, and we'll go from there, and hopefully this clears the question up for you. So first of all, let's talk about bare metal. Bare metal must be protected, from corrosion. So it has to have a certain product on it for that. And I'm going to try to leave the word primer out of these products. Maybe a little bit hard because we're used to saying it. But just to try to clarify this, I tried to think of a way that would make this really easy to understand. I thought, we'll just leave primer out. Okay, so we've got bare metal. There's two choices you can do for bare metal. You can use a self-etch product, which is an acid product that etches to the steel, and it has corrosion protection to keep it from rusting. Or you can use epoxy. Those are the two choices that I talk about. You don't have to use both. It's either or. Epoxy or a self-etch acid type primer. So if you don't have no bare metal, you can forget about those two. You don't need them. Okay, if you're doing body work and you have body filler, there's only one type of primer that you use over body work. It might be due to the scratches. You need to fill in your 150, 180 scratches, or for whatever reason you're needing to level and fill those scratches. We're just going to call that a filler, not to confuse with body filler, but let's just call it a filler. That's just for where you have body work. If you have no scratches that you're trying to fill, if you have no body work, if you're just sanding and painting something, you don't need this one. So skip that one. Now the next one that I talk about is a sealer. And sealer is used to hide. So if you got a spot on there that's lighter than the rest of the vehicle, you can put some sealer which will hide that. So we'll call that a hiding sealer. If you got a new car, you sanded it down, properly, let's say with some 400 grit, got it ready to paint, and there's nothing that you need to hide, you don't need that. You can skip that part. That's just for hiding. You don't have to have that. Okay, now let's go back and talk about that using, the primer word to maybe help clarify that a little bit. Okay, we have metal. A couple of choices you can use. You can use epoxy primer or self-etch primer or some type of acid type primer. Those are the two choices you have. You do not use both, either or. Now if you don't need to fill, you can go to the paint step. You can skip the fill primer, primer surfacer. If it does have scratches, let's say you did some body work, it had some metal, so you epoxied or self-etched the metal, and now you need to fill those. So we're going to use the filler. It's referred to as a fill prime, primer filler, or primer surfacer. All of the same thing. So you're going to have to put that primer surfacer on there to fill those scratches. Now that has to be sanded out, block sanded out. You cannot paint straight on top of primer surfacer. And you want to sand it out because that's what you're doing. You're filling and leveling the scratches. Okay, if you didn't have body work, you don't need to do that step. Now the third stage is primer sealer. Let's say we did prime a spot and it's light gray and the car's dark red or something like that. Well, it's going to take a lot of paint to fill up that gray spot. So we can use a primer sealer, the hiding sealer. And what that'll do is that'll make it all one uniform color. And it'll take less paint to paint the car. Now you don't have to use that. As long as the products that you're using, the primer surfacer is a 2-part 2K primer, you don't have to use sealer. It may take a little extra paint to cover that spot, but it's just for hiding, that's it. Okay, so I hope this clears it up. So step one, if you got metal, epoxy or self-etch primer. And this is just to clear this up a little bit further. Now this is just my preferred method. There's some people that use acid primer, on everything. But for restoration, which I'm thinking a lot of you do out there, I'm going to use epoxy because it works real good for metal, and you can even later put fillers over epoxy. That's the only one that'll allow you to put body filler on it. But it's going to be really good for corrosion protection in large areas. Now if I'm sanding a fender, I'm just sanding a new fender and have a few little burn through spots, quarter or silver dollar size, I'll get the acid self-etch primer because it comes in a rattle can. It's not a 2K, and you can just prime the little metal spot and then continue your process. So if I have a large metal area, me personally, I'm going to use epoxy. A small area, I'll just use self-etch. If I had body work, I'm going to use primer surfacer and block sand it out. I usually block everything out with 400 or 500 before painting. So if I didn't have no body work, skip that part. Now the primer sealer, I'm a fan of that, but there's some people that don't use primer sealer on anything. You don't have to use it, but it does use less paint, and paint's more expensive than the sealer. So I'll go ahead and seal most of the things that I'm working on. And even if I'm blending a spot in, let's say I have a spot about this big and it's primer, and I might just seal that area and then blend the paint in a little bit further and then clear coat the whole panel. That's just my preference. So I hope I didn't confuse you. I went over a lot. I mean, this is really a discussion that could last 2 or 3 hours in a class discussion trying to get this right. Hopefully that cleared it up, but there is one more option that I don't want to confuse you, but it kind of eliminates a couple of these other steps. And you have to make sure it's a direct to metal primer. There are some primers out there, has to be direct to metal, that have acid in it that does the corrosion protection, and it's a primer surfacer, a primer filler. So you can put that straight over bare metal in your body work and anything else, sand it and paint right on top of it. But ask your paint supplier, whatever brand you're using, if they have a direct to metal primer. You cannot put regular primer surfacer straight on metal. So I hope this clears you up and it didn't confuse you too much. And if it did, leave me another comment and I'll try to further explain that. And if you have a better explanation, be sure to leave us a comment or let us know, and we'll try to further explain this as well. But anyway, this was a kind of a long video because there's a lot of confusion about primer surfacer, primer sealer, and epoxy and self-etch, and I hope this cleared it up for you. Anyway, thanks for watching this, and if you have any other questions, leave a comment below. And be sure in the description, the video that we're referring to will be down in the description as well. Talk to you later.